Okay, so welcome to our second webinar in the Piedmont Regional Goat and Sheep Conference webinar series. We are going to be talking about livestock guardian animals tonight. A little bit about us. There's a team of livestock agents here in the north central, Piedmont area that work together to put on the Piedmont Regional Goat and Sheep Conference every single year. And this year we had to move it to a webinar series, so we're glad that you're able to join us tonight. But this is the listing of all the agents. So if you are in our district, make sure you reach out to one of these agents and thank them for their work on this. If you don't know your livestock agent, make sure that you can reach out to me and I can put you in touch with them. But they're a really great resource across the entire country. But we have a really strong network of extension agents here in North Carolina. So if you're not working with them, I would encourage you to get up with them and learn what extension can offer to you. So for tonight, Cole Maness, he's the livestock agent in Guilford County. He's going to be talking to you all about livestock guardian animals. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to him, let him introduce himself, and he's going to get going with our webinar tonight.
Hey everybody. Hope you can hear me good. Can y'all hear me, Lauren? Okay. So thanks everybody for getting on with us tonight. I'm glad that everybody could join us. I see some people commenting saying they don't hear, so
Cole, if you will stop screen sharing, I messed up trying to pin the video. If you'll stop and then start it back up again, I'm sorry.
Good.
Okay. Yeah, you're good to go. Thanks.
Okay.
You're good.
So thanks everybody for joining us tonight. I'm glad everybody could get on with our webinar. It's really exciting to see how many people we have with us through this webinar series, and I'm just glad that everybody can make it. So tonight we're going to talk about livestock guardian animals. This original presentation was put together by Andy Burlingham, who's our Pitt County Cooperative Extension, which is down around Greenville. I've made some changes to it and added some things to it and I hope you guys enjoy it. So we're going to get started here. So you walk out to check your sheep and you find that your best lamb is missing, or you go out to check on your goats and your daughter's best show prospect is not there, or you come home one day to find a dog has gotten in and killed some of your animals. It's just sickening. So how do we make sure this doesn't happen on our farm? The best way is to choose a good protector. So one of the leading causes of death in American sheep flocks and goat herds is situations where we could have took actions to prevent predation. So that's something that I want to kind of start off with some tips to maybe help with those issues. So a good fence can help and is an essential first step. So at least having some electrified wires that are powerful enough to get the attention of dogs or coyotes is a good thing to have. However,
Cole, I'm sorry to interrupt. Are we supposed to still be seeing the first slide?
Yeah, I'm just
okay. Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to double check because okay, sorry.
Yeah, you're fine. So however, in areas with a lot of predator pressure, savvy predators can figure out how to avoid the shocks from the electric fence, and once they do, the fence will not be sufficient protection. And also, a fence cannot protect from avian predators such as eagles or turkey vultures, and we do have those in North Carolina. So another way to help is penning livestock near the house at night. Can help if predators are wary of humans. Most of the time, coyotes are, in particular, are very wary of humans. So that's a good way to kind of fight that issue as well. However, internal parasites become an issue where animals camp and manure builds up. And manure left in the lot is not helping the pastures. So it's much better to keep the animals on pasture when possible so that their fertility can build the soil. So this is where livestock guardians can show their value. So by using livestock guardian animals, you can give your animals a 24-hour-a-day bodyguard and allow the animals to stay out grazing and spreading manure on the land, and while preventing injuries and deaths and giving yourself some peace of mind. So they're well worth the cost. On the other hand, not all livestock guardian animals are effective. And when they're not, they can cause losses and strain neighbor relations. So how can you increase the odds of getting a good protector and not another problem? And that's what this presentation is about, is just following some strategies that can help you set up a good situation. So with that, we're going to start with polling question number 1. And Lauren's going to pull that up on your screen. And so if you would answer that for us, and we can get a better idea of, what type of animals that you all are managing.
Sheep.
Okay, Cole, it looks like the majority are saying sheep. We do have some that are saying both sheep and goats.
Okay.
And then we do have some that are saying meat goats and dairy goats.
Okay. Well, that's a good place to start, and we can build from that. So the first livestock guardian animal we're going to start with is a llama. And so it's kind of out of the ordinary. I've only seen a few, but they seem to be pretty good livestock guardian animals from what I've seen. They're very watchful. They have a very loud, alert call, and their main protection plan, I guess you would say, is to stand between the flock and the predator. And so they're kind of like a barrier between the predator and the flock. The downside is they're not as good against packs. However, they're easily socialized to the herd or the flock. So they don't take a lot of bonding for them to work well with your herd or your flock. A couple of other points is that they need shearing. So if you have wool type breed sheep, that may fit in, where you can work that in and have them sheared, or you can shear them yourself. But that is something that they're going to have done probably at least once a year. Another point is that they are aloft, or they're distant, so they don't really socialize well with people, and they kind of keep their distance from you. And so it may be difficult to get them to come up to do anything with them. Also, they're going to need foot care, so they're going to need their hooves trimmed, just like your sheep and goats will. So that's one another thing to add in. And we're going to move on down to our donkeys. So everybody's seen the donkeys. They're the classic livestock guardian animal. Most people see them with cattle, but there are several small ruminant producers who use them as well. They have a strong dislike of canids or canines, so they really dislike dogs. They're very reactive. Um, they're very proactive as well. Um, they have a very, loud vocalization, so they kind of establish a strong presence. Um, they're known for chasing and kicking, and they will kill predators. So another good point is that they're long lived and they're easy to care for. So, donkeys typically live, 20 to 30 years is a good lifespan for a donkey. And I'm sure there's people who have had them older than that, but I would say their effective life range is out to 20 and 30. Um, so they feed separately. They one good thing about them is that they can eat what the sheep and goats are eating. So they're not something that you have to feed. Um, they're not something you have to feed separately. They eat, along with the sheep and goats, so they're going to be right there with them, and there's no issues with having to feed them anything special. Most of them are very accepting of people. They very sociable with people, so that's another good point. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that they need early socialization with the herd or the flock. Um, Try to keep one donkey per group, and Jenny and geldings are the best. Absolutely do not use intact males. They just do not have strong protection instincts, and they can also be harmful to livestock. But be watchful during birthing season. You just really need to be watchful over them, and make sure that they're not having any issues um, with the lambs or the kids for that matter, and just make sure that they are not doing anything to harm any of your newborns. So here we have some downsides to donkeys and llamas. As I said before, with donkeys and llamas, both intact males they're just no good for livestock protection. And I'm sure somebody has a case where they have an intact male that's just fine, and that may be the case. But for the most part, for both llamas and donkeys, intact males are not. They just don't have those instincts to protect. So with llamas may be better alone than with other llamas. When you put more than one llama into a herd or a flock, they tend to stay together and not socialize with the herd or the flock, so that can be an issue. Both of them could be dangerous to livestock and humans if they're not properly bonded. So you definitely want to check any animal you're going to possibly get as a livestock guardian. You need to check out and see how they respond to human interaction, and how they respond to, or if they're properly bonded to the livestock that you're planning to put them with. If somebody has a donkey that they've had with cattle, that may not work with your sheep because they may not associate the two together. And also, I just wanted to add in that there's really limited research on the effectiveness of llamas. Um, I know that people use them and they can be good livestock guardian animals, but we really have a limited amount of research on how effective they really are when it comes down to, real protection. So I just wanted to add that in. Um, and so our last livestock guardian animal is our dogs. So our dogs are a mix of defense and offense. So they're barking, they're urine marking, um, territorial patrol, active chasing, and even attacking predators. So they work well in pairs. One dog per 100 head is what is recommended. Obviously, you can go less than that. That's the top number that you would want to put one dog with. But pairs are better at deterring packs. And as most of you probably know, most coyotes run in packs and they hunt in packs and they feed in packs. So that is kind of a thing where we have a lot of our predation issues, or most of the predation issues that I've seen, involve coyotes at some point. And so that's an important thing to consider. Also, dogs work across many situations. They can be protective over poultry, sheep and goats, even cattle, property, kids, just a little bit of everything. They'll really protect whatever you train them to protect. They deter canids or canines, foxes, varmints, predatory birds, and even unknown people. So dogs are very versatile. They also are probably have the most upkeep and the most care involved. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more right after our polling question number 2.
Okay, so question number 2, there are several questions in this one. It's actually like a 3-part deal. So question number 1 is, do you currently have a guardian animal? Yes or no, in the process. Number 2, if yes, what kind? Dog, donkey, llama. Number 3, if dog, what breed? And I've got several breeds listed, as well as other. If you list other, can you put in the chat window what breed you have? I would just be curious. So we're gonna give y'all maybe another like 30 seconds to answer these questions, and then we'll continue on. So Cole, looks like the majority do have a guardian animal. There are some that say no, some that are in the process. The overwhelming majority have a dog. About 88% have a dog. 8% have a donkey. 4% have a llama.
Okay.
Dog breed, 44% are saying Great Pyrenees. 16% have Anatolians. 12% have the Marimas. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. And there's 28% that say they have other, and it looks like they're crosses.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, great. That's good, because that's what I was that's kind of what I based this presentation on, because I would say that a majority of people do have a dog as a livestock guardian animal. So we're going to get into that a little bit I'm going to start with livestock guardian dog selection. So for those of you who don't have one, or if you already do, or if you're thinking about getting one, this should really help out a lot. So really, the main thing we want to start with is choosing the right breed. So choose the right animal for the terrain, the predator pressure, the pasture size, your proximity to your neighbors can be important, your budget, the availability of animals, and also your personal preference. Um, so make sure that they come from a proper background or that they're bonded. So um, I would only use animals that have been bonded to the species that they will protect. If you're buying a livestock guardian dog and he's with chickens, and you're going to put them with goats or sheep, that may or may not work. I would be on the cautious side of putting a livestock guardian dog that had been with another species of animals onto your farm. Um, and bonding happens in the first weeks of life, and we're going to get into that a little bit more in this presentation. But for dogs, that's before they're 16 weeks old. So you definitely want to make sure that they're coming from the right background and that they are bonded. Um, so cost. Um, Actually, before I get into cost, I want to kind of go back to proper background. You can actually kind of do um, a little test with your animals. You can kind of put them in a small pen with, if they have been with a different species, you can put them in a pen with your goats or your sheep and a small pen and just see how they react to each other and how they work together. That may be a good way to just kind of see how they're going to do, and maybe give them some time in that situation before you turn them out with the whole flock or the herd. And so we're going to get into cost a little bit. So don't expect to get a good dog for free. And I know um, they can get expensive, but the animals that you want have been raised. Make sure that they've been raised on a farm with the animals that you plan for them to guard, and then the dog you want should be vaccinated, and those essential shots come with a cost. So be prepared to pay a little bit more for a livestock guardian dog that's been well reared and very well taken care of. It'll save you money in the long run if you do. And so, an animal that's not bonded, we're going back to that a little bit, it may avoid associating cost with losing livestock from the livestock guardian dog, killing them rather than protecting them. So, um, definitely, that's one of the most important parts. And so, choosing the right number of guardians is also important. So, like I said, one dog, at most, 100 head per one dog is the most you want to limit that to. But they do work better in pairs. Um, it's also okay to combine different species of guardians, as long as a llama or donkey works well or is also bonded to that dog. That can work. That can work as well. And then proper instincts. So if you're getting a livestock guardian dog, just be sure to choose a dog that is all guardian. That both parents come from the type of dog with the proper instincts. So, for example, a Great Pyrenees or Anatolian Shepherd cross may make a wonderful guardian, but a Great Pyrenees and Labrador may not make a very good cross at all. So, you definitely want to get one that is all guardian if possible, and to make sure that it has those proper instincts to guard the animals you want it to guard. And so with that, we're going to go into polling question number 3.
Okay, so polling question number 3 is, what is your primary predator concern on your farm? So I've got coyotes, neighbors' dogs, vulture, bobcat, fox, or other. If you select other, please tell us in the chat window. And I apologize for the last question. So Cole, there was probably another 10 to 15 plus people that said they do not have a guardian animal. So they might
Okay.
be in the majority actually on this program, which would make sense for tonight. So I
Okay.
apologize, folks. We're definitely on a learning curve with Zoom. We'll get it straightened out by the time this is all over. All right, about another 30 seconds. Okay, so the majority are saying coyote. So about 60% of y'all, 26% say neighbor's dog. And then there's a few concerns about vultures and foxes. Okay.
All right. So with that, we're going to get into a little bit of livestock guardian dog training. So obviously, as I was talking about before, bonding is a serious deal. And you definitely want to get an animal, a livestock guardian dog, or even any livestock guardian animal that is bonded. But we're specifically going to talk about dogs right now. So the ideal time to begin the bonding of guardian dogs to livestock is from 4 to 8 weeks of age. And I know that's like really small, and it really surprised me as well. But you definitely want to get them started while they're still nursing. And so research indicates that dogs might not properly bond with livestock if the bonding phase is started after the dog is 16 weeks old. So we definitely want that dog to be bonded at least before 16 weeks old. One good way to do that, if you're buying a small puppy, is to place 1 or 2 livestock guardian dog puppies in a small pen. So, like something like 150 square feet or so, with 3 to 6 livestock animals. So, livestock used for bonding should have previously been socialized with dogs, or whatever livestock guardian animal that is, and not be aggressive towards them, because that could definitely cause issues. Um, so dams and their offspring that have been socialized to guard dogs are excellent candidates. However, you can use the dams that do not have experience with dogs, as long as you are vigilant and remove animals that are aggressive towards the livestock guardian dog. Um, so socialized dams and their offspring will provide companionship to the dogs, and while not tolerating inappropriate behavior from the puppy. So really it's good to have kind of that dam and offspring deal, because really that dam's not gonna like let that puppy chew on the lamb or the kid or anything like that. So they're not gonna allow those inappropriate behaviors, and they can kind of train that puppy without you having to even really do anything. And so, although you may only have one class of livestock, if your neighbors have some different types of animals that they haven't been socialized to, that can be a good time to start and kind of socialize them to several different kinds of livestock animals while you have them up. And so you need to definitely have a place in the pen where the livestock guardian dog puppies can be excluded at feeding time. So you definitely have to feed them separately. And that is another thing that plays into, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But at around 16 weeks, you can turn these livestock guardian dogs in with their bonded animals into larger pens or small pastures. But definitely want to make sure that you monitor them for the following couple of weeks for sure. And so with that, we're going to get into boundaries. So teaching respect for the boundary fence is very important. As most of you probably know, Great Pyrenees in particular are known as roamers. And so a lot of times they won't necessarily be with the flock or the herd. They'll be roaming the perimeter of the fence and marking their territory, and things like that. And so we definitely want to teach them to have respect for the boundary fence, because that's usually how they get out, and that's usually how we lose our livestock guardian dog is due to that. So, like I said, research shows that only 52% of guardian dogs live to be 6 years old, and that 57% of their fatalities occur when they leave the property. So, one of the best ways to teach that is with an electric fence. If you have a good electric fence, that's one of the best ways to teach them respect for the boundary fence. And even if you have woven wire, if you can just run one or two wires along the inside of the fence to kind of make them respect that fence, that works very well. You can also use a shock collar, to the point where when you're training them, if you are out there with them, you can teach them, if they start showing behaviors of trying to go through the fence or over the fence, you can teach them not to do that. And that's one of the best ways to keep your livestock guardian dog alive, is to make sure that they stay inside that fence. And so with that, we're going to get into the basic demands, or teaching the basic commands, I mean. So livestock guardian dog puppies should be taught a come command. And so you can do that when you're feeding, and checking in with them on the training. So mild acts of affection, such as petting on the head or scratching their belly, it is encouraged to reinforce a come command. However, your interaction should be brief to avoid excessive bonding between you and the dog. You should also teach your livestock guardian dog a no command. And air horns can be very effective for stopping unwanted behaviors. It's common for livestock guardian dog puppies to bite or chew on livestock during the bonding phase. And it's not necessarily a sign that they'll be ineffective guardians, but they're puppies. So to correct that behavior immediately if possible. And as they get older, they kind of get into that 5 to 10 month old range in larger enclosures. They may want to chase the animals to which they're bonding. So you can use a dangle chain with an object behind it, a dangle chain that's as short as 2 to 4 feet, attached with a 2x4 or something to slow the dog down and kind of stop that chasing behavior. And so if you see the livestock are being chewed on, they're often the weakest and should be removed from the flock used for the bonding process. So you definitely want to keep an eye on them as far as that goes. Let me see. You also want to supervise any guardians during lambing or kidding, especially when they're young. Sometimes they have problems with protecting the babies from the mothers, and that can be a big issue. So you definitely want to keep an eye on them during that time. Sometimes the dogs may want to help clean the babies, which oftentimes upsets the mothers and may result in accidental chewing of ears or tails. Just them trying to clean them off, but they may end up doing that. And sometimes the ear or tail gets bit off and you don't realize it until later, but you definitely want to keep an eye on them when lambing or kidding is happening. But you must correct any bad behaviors, and may have to separate the guardians on the other side of the fence until they gain some maturity if you start having some of those issues. So plan on that your dogs are not mature until past 18 months. So just be watchful of them during that first 18 months. And you'll really prevent any issues from happening. And so we're going to go into livestock dog care and upkeep. So this is where we're going to get into our money. This part right here is really important, and a lot of people really overlook a lot of these parts when they think about how much money they're going to spend on their dog, as well as how much money it takes to upkeep their livestock guardian dog. So spaying and neutering is really important because it helps cut down on behavior issues. Obviously the exception is if you're planning to breed animals, of course. But intact male dogs are prone to wander, which often leads to trouble with the neighbors. Intact females, they may allow a wandering male dog to come into the pasture if she's in heat. So that can be an issue as well, especially if that dog is going to kill livestock, and she may be avoiding that protection instinct if she's in heat. So plan to spend what it takes to keep healthy guardian animals. So estimate and figure into the budget costs for vaccinations, deworming, heartworm prevention medications, flea and tick prevention, and also the food for the dogs. So these are legitimate farm expenses, and so you should definitely include those on your farm records. And so with proper feeding, you definitely need to make sure that your dogs are adequately fed and with a good high quality feed, so that they're not tempted to snack on baby animals. I know that sounds crazy, but if you have any lambs or kids that die in the pasture, making sure that you're watchful and getting those animals out of there so that those dogs don't, so that you don't allow those dogs to feed on those, is really a good preventative to a bad habit. So a small savings in dog food is not worth teaching those dogs bad habits. Yeah, let me see. So there's several ways that you can feed the dogs. The best thing to have is a place that the dog can get into to eat separately from those animals that it's guarding, mainly so that those animals aren't in there trying to eat their feed as well for some reason. You can use gravity dispense or self feeders. You can go out there and feed them every day. That just depends on your management style. The bad thing about self feeders is that some dogs are just have a really healthy appetite. So they're just going to eat whatever you put out there, and they're going to eat it till it's gone. Another drawback from the self-feeders is that they tend to draw varmints such as raccoons and things like that, and that may not be something that you necessarily want to be drawing into your pasture. Not that they're going to hurt your livestock, but just another thing for the dog to have to deal with, and it's going to cost you money with your feed. So you definitely want to have a structured feeding pattern, and it really helps with eliminating any of those varmint issues when you're hand feeding, and kind of have a structured feeding pattern that helps and gives that dog kind of some structure as well. It's really a good way to do it is if you're going to go out there and feed your livestock, is to go ahead and feed the dogs separately at that time is a good way to do that. And so human interaction is another part of that. So it's okay to pet them, and because you need to be able to catch them. You need to be able to take them on a leash, to take them to the vet to get yearly vaccinations and so on. And you need to feel safe with them. So having a dog that's friendly to you will not prevent them from doing their job, but keeping them on the porch will. So it's kind of one of those balance things where you don't want to be out there, rubbing on them, petting on them all the time, but at the same time, you want to have interaction with them to the point that they know you and they feel comfortable with you, and that you can get a hold of them and take them to the vet or do whatever you need to do with them without any issues with you. So you definitely don't want them to feel like you're a predator. So you definitely want to have good interaction with them, but not too much interaction with them. So we're going to get over to tips for livestock guardian dogs. Definitely want to buy from a reputable breeder. If it's someone in your community who has very good, takes very good care of their animals. They have a good name behind them. They have good reviews, sort of say. Definitely want to make sure that it's somebody who's reputable, not just some jackleg off the internet. Also, like I talked about, spaying and neutering. If you're not planning to breed, you definitely want to get them spayed and neutered, because that will prevent the next thing, which is prevent wandering. Spaying and neutering will help prevent that wandering a lot. Some dogs are just naturally, like I said, Great Pyrenees in particular are known for wanting to roam. So make sure those fences are good, and that you have maybe a couple of electric strands on the inside of the fence to kind of teach that respect for the fence. Make sure that it's hot, that electric fence is going to really give them a good shock. And that electric fence will also help with predators. So it's not for null, I guess you could say. Also provide protected feeding. So like I said, feeding those dogs away from the flock where they can have their own food. Some dogs show feed aggression, and that's really up to the dog's personality. And you don't want them to really feel that aggression towards those animals that they're guarding. So providing that protective feeding is important. And then the last thing is limiting human contact. So like I said, you want to be able to take those animals and do things with them. Take them to the vet if you need to, but they need to be with those animals that they're guarding a majority, if not almost all of the time. And it's fine if you want to pet their head or rub their belly when you go out there to feed them, and that's probably all of the contact that you really need with them. And that's just to ensure that they're not bonding too much to you. And I know that's really hard, especially if you have kids. I have a kid and she loves dogs, and that's really hard, especially with puppies, but it's something that you have to make sure of, that they're going to bond with those animals and not you or your kids. So just be mindful of that as well. And with that, we're going to go into polling question number 4.
Okay, sorry, I was typing in the chat window. Okay, polling question number 4 is, have you lost an animal to a predator? Yes or no? I'll give everybody about a minute to answer that. And while you're doing that, I had a participant just remind me, this is being recorded. It will be emailed out to you either tonight or tomorrow, along with handouts and a short evaluation that we ask for you to please complete and give us feedback on what you learned from tonight's webinar, so we can continue to do things like this. So be looking for that email from me tonight or tomorrow with that recording. And like I said, we have some good handouts, and we have a short evaluation for you to complete. Okay, so it looks like about 60%, give or take, are saying no, and about 41% have said yes, they have lost an animal to a predator. And if you've got questions, please do put them in the chat window. If we can answer them, we will immediately, but if not, we're going to save it for the end. All right, Cole, back to you.
All right, guys. So with that, we're going to kind of wrap up, and then we'll take some questions. So for the summary, livestock guardians are very effective. All of these guardians are very effective against dogs or canines, coyotes, any other type of wild dogs, anything like that. They're very effective. You choose your guardian based on your management style and your protection needs. So if you're not going to be out there every day, if you have pastures away from your house, things like that, a livestock guardian dog may not be for you. A llama or a donkey may fit you perfectly fine. Also, like I said, protection needs. So, if you're thinking about getting a llama, and you have a pack of coyotes that's around your farm, that may not work. You may need to get a donkey or a livestock guardian dog, or a pair of livestock guardian dogs. Make sure that you introduce with the proper introduction and the training needed. So definitely want to make sure that the dog or the donkey or the llama is properly bonded. And you definitely want to make sure that you are training those dogs the way they needed to be trained as well. Making sure that you don't start any bad habits, or that you don't let any bad habits slip by. I know they're puppies, and a lot of them will grow out of things, but you need to correct the bad behaviors when you see them, and try to get them started on the right leg. And then the last thing is to buy from a reputable breeder. Too often do we see that people get a livestock guardian animal that, they bought off of Craigslist or something like that. And I'm not saying that you can't buy a good one on Craigslist, because I'm sure there's some reputable breeders that advertise that way. But, it doesn't always work out when you don't buy from someone who's reputable. So just be wary of that. And, even if you have to go to that person's farm and see how the animals are cared for and how they're trained, and talk through some of these points that we've talked about with the breeder, and see how they do things, and do some research on your own. And hopefully you pick the right one. So, like I said, thank you everybody for coming on. And if you have any questions, we'd love to answer them if we can.
Okay, so we've got some questions coming in. Megan asks, can donkeys and dogs that have already been bonded to a flock be sold, given to a different farm, still have the same protecting instinct for the new flock?
A lot of times, yes, but they need to be introduced slowly to see if that, to see if it will work with your animals. I would say that I would maybe give it a shot and put them in a smaller pen with some of your calmest animals and just see how they work together. If they work well together, then it'll probably work. If they're already bonded to sheep and you're putting them with sheep, they're probably going to be just fine. But it may take a little bit of getting used to being on a new place and being with some new animals. So definitely want to kind of introduce those slowly and see how it goes from there.
Okay, so Andrew asked, where can I find a donkey and how old do they need to be?
Okay. So I can't really tell you where to find a donkey. That part you're gonna have to look for one. I don't know of any breeders off the top of my head. There may be some in this group, and if you are, please put it in the chat box. You know, your information if you're willing to give that up to whether you have some. As far as age, um, donkeys are a lot like, and llamas as well are a lot like the dogs in the fact that they need to be bonded pretty early. So I would try to get an animal that was pretty young. You can get an older donkey if it's already bonded to the animals you're wanting to put with. But if you're looking to get a young animal to start on your own, if I was looking at donkeys, I would probably try to get something that was as young as 2 to 4 months old. So before that 16-week age range, they're going to fall into that, just like dogs, really.
Okay, and
Okay.
I will add on to that, Andrew. Just reach out to your livestock extension agent. I don't know if you're in North Carolina or what county you're in or that sort of thing, but reach out to the extension service is a great way to get connected with folks in the area that might have a donkey for sale or that breed donkeys. Most of us have a good handle as to what is going on in our area, and hopefully we can help you. And there was a comment made by one of our extension agents that Facebook groups are a great place to find donkeys. And yeah, there's a lot of really good Facebook groups. There's a North Carolina livestock for sale group, I think, still out there. So that might be something to check out. John asked, we just had a litter of Pyrenees pups that we're selling. What can we do to get them started on the right track?
Okay, so definitely what we talked about with going ahead and starting them um, in the bonding phase with um, probably as many different livestock animals that you can get a hold of is a good way to start that bonding process. If you have sheep, put some sheep with them. If you can get some goats, put some goats with them. That's probably two of the most used, two of the most likely livestock that they're going to be guarding. Also, if you have some chickens that can be around, that would be great as well. I know a lot of people who use guardian dogs for poultry. So that would be my recommendation, would be to try to bond them to as many livestock animals as possible. And, they can really kind of go anywhere from there.
Okay. Cheryl asked, last week I just got 2 one-year-old Romanian sheep dogs that are brothers. They were born on a sheep goat ranch and have adapted quickly to my flock. One dog is very friendly. The brother is very shy and has only been on my farm 2 days. How can I get this other dog to come closer to the barn so I can feed it and eventually get a collar on it?
Yeah, so I would say if you possibly can to maybe lure them into a smaller pen where you can kind of start that initiation, and also maybe realize that not all of them are going to be and that's one thing I didn't necessarily talk about was the different personalities. You know, some dogs are gonna they're going to stay with animals all the time, and they might come up and let you touch them, and some of them may not. You know, we really would like to get a hold of them, but not all of them are going to let us. But I would probably try um, to use food to lure that dog up, and maybe just if you just sit on a bucket and get him comfortable with coming up close to you, and then just keep working on trying to touch him. Just don't be forceful. But food or treats will work very well for dogs. And so that's probably what I would try to do is just lure them in with food or treats, and just let them get comfortable to your presence first, and then continue trying to get to where you can touch that dog would be the ideal way to do that.
Okay, Cindy asked, how much should you expect to spend on a donkey?
Okay, so that question I really do not have the answer to. I have seen them from, a couple $100 all the way up to $1,000. I mean, I really think it depends on who you're buying it from and where they're coming from, their background, and things like that. I really don't have a good answer for that, to be honest.
I'd say that they range probably from 2 to 500 is what I typically see. And you might get one for free, and there might be a really good one that's over 5, but 2 to 5 is what I normally see out in the market.
Yeah, and that's probably a majority of what I see as well. So that's probably a good price range to kind of look in.
Okay, so Sonia asked, how are donkeys with respecting the Premier fence system? So I'm assuming she's talking about the electric netting.
Mm-hmm. So most donkeys most donkeys respect fence pretty well. Um, I would say that it depends on how hot that fence is. So if you've got your net fence pretty hot, they'll probably respect it. You may have some issues. I know that Premier fence is kind of short, so that may be an issue with them going over it. But if you're not enclosing the pasture too small, I don't think that you'll have an issue with it. If they're if it's just one donkey alone with the flock or the herd, they typically want to stay with them. So they really don't care to wander out and away from them for the most part.
Okay, so I think the guardian breeds question has been answered. The next one down is it better to get a male or female Great Pyrenees for goats?
For goats, I'll be honest, I tend to lean towards the females. They obviously have that mothering and kind of caring instinct in them already built into them, and not that males don't as well, because they are bred to be livestock guardian dogs, but the females, for me, just tend to have that extra little boost of kind of just care and affection for those animals, and overall kind of mommy protection mode, if you know what I mean.
Okay, so we have had a couple of people ask about miniature donkeys. So let me read out, in case you didn't see what Clint had said. Full-size donkeys are usually more protective in nature versus a miniature. Miniatures have had their natural instinct bred out of them over time, trying to achieve size rather than protection. But if you can find a miniature breeder that is known for protection aspects, that should be a safe bet. And just so everyone knows, Clint is a livestock agent in Caswell County. I believe he has had sheep, if I'm thinking of that correctly. So he's got some experience to pull from, and I would definitely second him on that. Minis are more of a novelty. But if you do find a good breeder that is keeping that natural instinct within their breeding program and they're using them for protection, then you can definitely go with that. Kara said, we have a livestock facility at our high school of 15 boar goats. Which animal would you recommend? Ooh, that's a tough one with a high school.
Yeah, I would say that with a high school, I would stay away from a livestock guardian dog because it's more than likely going to get too much human interaction. I know how people are with dogs, and they just want to pet them and love on them, and I don't think that would be the right selection for that scenario. I think a llama would probably work pretty well, and even a donkey. So either one of those I think would work well for that scenario. I would probably lean away from the livestock guardian dog, just for the fact of it's probably going to get way too much human interaction, and you definitely don't want that.
Okay, I'm not 100% sure if this person is asking this question, but I'm going to throw it out there. Margaret said, I echo the typical cost of both donkeys and livestock guardian dog puppy price expectations question. So I'm guessing she wants to know maybe what our puppy price expectations is what
Yeah.
I'm reading it as.
Yeah, so let me get into that a little bit. So I would say that it's estimated that you're going to pay anywhere from $500 to $1,000 for a good livestock guardian dog. I'm sure there's ones cheaper. There always is. But you can figure in the first year cost is going to be about $1,000. So you kind of take that for what it is. If the breeder has already bonded that dog and it's got all of its shots for the first year, I think $1,000 is a good expectation. But you have to remember too that the annual costs thereafter are about $500, at least for the first 3 years, and then they kind of start to go down a lot more as you go on through the years, and you really start to weigh out the cost of them. But I would say, yeah, anywhere from 500 to 1,000 is my projection.
Okay, so Laura asked, is it better to buy a purebred registered Pyrenees, or is one from another farm but unregistered just as good?
I think that falls back on the breeder and their reputation. I think there are some very good breeders who have dogs that aren't registered, that do all of the right things. And there's also purebred breeders who do not do those things. So definitely have to go check the breeder out, look at their place, look at how they manage their dogs, and look at any issues with that they may have had with past bloodlines or anything like that. Definitely want the dogs to have good, solid structure, good hips, good feet. They need to be structured in the right way because they're going to be out and they're going to be moving. So, just definitely things to look at, and again, buy from a reputable breeder. So, I don't think that a reputable breeder means a registered breeder, but they definitely just need to be doing the right things as far as bonding and things like that.
So Clint had added in that just make sure that they're not breeding for show, that they are breeding
Yep.
for protection purposes, because the show dogs typically have the instinct bred out. Make sure you ask questions. We did have another participant add in, look at hip quality and longevity. Something
Yes.
also ask the breeders about. And big thing is to look at the parents and the parents' instinct and being raised with livestock. And then just to keep going with the dog conversation, Cheryl asked, did Cole say that a livestock guardian dog typically just lives 6 years?
No, it's not that they live 6 years. I was the average. So there was a study done in Texas, and they looked at the 6 year survival of livestock guardian dogs and the causes for losses. And so only 52% of guardian dogs actually live to be 6 years old. And that's not because of issues of them actually dying from natural causes or anything like that. That's from those dogs getting into an accident or something like that.
Okay, so we've got time for one more question. If anybody has one, I'll give you a quick second to type in the chat window. While I have everybody's attention for we close out tonight, just keep in mind that the webinars is a 2-step registration process. You register through Eventbrite, you then get an email, and there should be a big orange button at the top of your email that says you can view the online material. It says view now. When you click there, it's going to take you to another screen that now has Zoom registration info on it. And you can click the video player there to then get registered into Zoom to get the link and the password. I will continue to try to inform everybody prior to the webinar, but just note that everything's there for you to do it yourself. It's just a little bit confusing. So bear with us. We just want to make sure that we have tight security in these webinars so that it's safe for everybody to be involved. All
Yes.
right, there's no more questions. Cole, did you have anything left to say before we close things out?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for everybody for joining in with us, and we really appreciate it. And please, with the information Lauren sends out to you guys, please fill out the evaluation. It's really important for us. That's part of our job is to take those evaluations and figure out what we're doing right or wrong. It should only take a couple of minutes to fill out. So please fill those evaluations out for us, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you all. We hope you have a great night. We hope to see you on next week's webinar all about hoof health and trimming hooves. So we'll see you next week. Thanks.